Okay, guys, we are on part 2 of working on Rosie from Hazbin Hotel. We are now working on the hat. We got the dress done in the previous part, and now we are working on her hat. She has a rather large, dramatic hat, and I really wanted to do the best I could to embody that hat within realms of feasibility. I am again thrifting this entire project, so the hat had to be what I could find. So I got the largest hat I could find at the thrift store, which ended up being kind of a normal sized hat. I wish I had been able to find something a bit larger, but in the end I think it works pretty well. I do end up altering the shape of the hat a bit by putting wires and things in it so that it does have a little bit more life to it than the original hat. But for the most part, what I am doing with this hat is using all of the leftover scraps from building the dress to build this hat. I want them to obviously look like they belong together, so by using the same materials in both places will help create a continuity between the two pieces, which ended up being kind of a struggle towards the end as I was running out of material to use on the hat. The dress had been made originally out of 3 thrifted dresses that I had gotten to build out of, and I was starting to run out of pieces of those dresses to decorate this hat with, so I did have to be really careful on how I was arranging them on the hat. I think it worked out pretty well in the end, and I like it. I do like the hat when it's all done. I don't usually throw everything into the hot glue gun, but in dealing with this hat, I didn't really feel like I wanted to hand stitch everything. The material of the hat was very stiff, and being I could not stick it under a sewing machine, and having to hand sew that would have killed my digits. So we hot glued a lot of this hat, and I don't know, had this been a contest piece, if I would have hot glued as much of it as I did. But I think it turned out really great in the end. It's going to be fun to wear this hat in photo shoots, and I think we should just get into it and see how this hat turned out. Here is all of the material that I have left over from making Rosie's dress. I have a little bit of the black dress, the purple dress, and the maroon dress that I used to obviously build the Rosie's dress. I also have some of these trims, a little bit left over of the doily, and these styrofoam skulls that I found at the dollar store. And then this is the hat that I will be attaching all of this onto. So the first thing that I need to do for this is I need to stiffen the brim of this hat. It's kind of too floppy for the look that I'm going for. So what I'm going to do is wrap this piece of wire around the brim of the hat, kind of gluing it into place and giving the hat a bit more structure to keep the brim from flopping over. The next thing I did was started wrapping the fabric around the hat. I did these kind of pleated tucks in here so that the fabric would lay down smoothly. This was not the greatest fabric to work with. It was the lining to the original maroon dress that I built Rosie's actual dress out of. So the goal was here to just get it on and cover up the woven bits of the hat. And then for the most part, we're not going to see a whole lot of this fabric left anyway. Then I flipped it over and kind of wrapped it around the edge. Once it was attached on top, this way we would have a nice smooth brim around the outside. Once I had that entirely glued on, I did cut away the extras to just like make laying down the bottom of the hat, the fabric that goes on the bottom, a little bit more smoother. The bottom of the hat is going to be black. I still have some of the black velvet that was used as trims on the dress. In fact, this is the dress I have the most left over of. So when it came to building anything, I was going to use a lot more of this than anything else. So essentially what I did, and this is what I did on the top and I forgot to film it, was I would lay out the pieces of fabric and clip them into place, and then the places where the clips weren't going to reach, I pinned it. Then once I've got it clipped and pinned all the way around the brim of the hat, I start to glue it down. The reason why we're tucked in the inside and straight on the outside is just like anything, a circle is bigger on the outside, narrower on the inside, and so if you've got a straight piece of fabric, you are going to have to tuck it in so that you don't have like weird gathers and folds. I'm doing regular tucks here because I don't want it to be gathered unevenly when I kind of just glue the rest of the fabric into the center of the hat. It's important for me that the hat is obviously regular along the entire inside so that it doesn't make it hard to put the wig on. Once I have it all pinned and tacked, I can start gluing it down. This velvet, because the pile of the little hairs on the velvet was pretty thick, I had to lay down a lot of glue in order for it to kind of like hold itself in place. of the hat that needed a little bit of covering was the top of the hat. Obviously, I don't want to leave this safari print here, so I took the last made piece of this purple dress that I used and started shaping it over the top of the hat. I did like kind of the drapey look of this dress to begin with, so being able to just fold and tuck, however, was kind of nice, because in the end I was able to kind of just organically put this fabric onto the top of the hat, and it looked pretty cute. So I would kind of just grab and gather wherever I thought looked nice, covering up the base layer. There was not really a plan for this. It was very organic. It was something that I was making up as I went along. In the end, I think it turned out pretty nice. I tried to preserve this like beaded spot on the dress. I thought it made a great focal point for the hat. So here I am trying to like get that beaded portion to be front and center on this hat. Just basically tucking in the raw edges and gluing into those areas. Now, one thing that I did not appreciate about this whole process, and normally I wouldn't do this, is I don't usually hot glue things together, and I don't like that some of the glue ended up being a little bit visible. When I put more decoration onto the hat later, I ended up being able to cover up some of the visible glue in there. But if I were to do this again, I probably would have hand sewn these pieces into place so that you don't see any of these little bits of glue left behind. Then after I've got all of the main body of it on there, I took some trims that matched the trim that I have on the dress itself and wrapped that around the base of the head of the hat. I don't know. Then I used these dollar store little skulls and these leftover bits of black lace to kind of create more visual interest on the hat. Again, I was working kind of organically and putting things on as I went to just decide how I liked it, and figuring out as I went and just going for it. Then I had these peacock feathers. They didn't really match the vibe of the hat, really. So I went out with my airbrush and as carefully as I could, did kind of like a coat of black paint onto these peacock feathers. They turned out okay. It turns out you can't really get rid of all of the color in a peacock feather as much as I wanted to. They have still kind of like that shiny greenness in the middle of it. But I feel like I got it pretty well. It's definitely much darker and fits the vibe of the dress a little bit better. But yeah, it definitely wasn't as dark as I had hoped. As I said before, I wasn't super happy with being able to see some of the glue seams on this hat, so I went back in and hand tacked some of these seams together to kind of just cover up the glue part of these seams that I had in the first place. And I feel like it looks a lot cleaner and it holds together a little bit better too, making some of these more awkward areas of the gathering look a little bit more intentional. Once I had the hat base where I wanted it, I decided to make these kind of gathered little flowery shapes. I didn't have any silk flowers or anything to mimic the flowers that she has in her character design, so I figured I could take a little bit of the scrap fabric left over from making the dress and make these kind of like gathered rosette kind of pieces to go onto the hat. This is a thrifted costume, and I didn't really want to go out and buy like silk flowers just to put them on this hat. So making these rosettes seemed like the best option for decorating the hat in a manner that would mimic what the original style of the character was. Once I had kind of like a vision for where the rest of the decorating on this hat went, I ran out of glue. So we kind of sat on my table for a couple of days, and then here we start to do the final assembly on the hat decoration. So we put on some velvet trim that I originally hadn't planned on doing, and I feel like it mimics the bottom of the dress pretty well. And also does a little bit more coverage on this base maroon fabric that I wasn't super fond of. Then we put on the painted peacock feathers, as Rosie has some rather dramatic feathers on her hat. I really wanted to include the feather aspect into this final design. Then goes on our little fabric rosettes, and finally the skulls and crossbones. And that's it. It was a really quick assembly on this, and I am so happy with how it turned out. I think it's super cute and matches the character pretty well. And here she is, matched with the dress. This is our hat, and I am so excited to get to wear this. We have a photo shoot planned, and hopefully soon I'll be able to share the wonderful pictures that we get from the photo shoot.